Well, a viral video has shown a man threatening to be a transgender woman as an excuse for him being inside of the women's change room at the Cowichan Aquatic Center. I'm Drea Humphrey for Rebel News. Let's talk about it.
What unfolded was then an attack on the mother when she asked why he was using this room when he came out, and asked him to either leave or go to the universal change room because the girls were uncomfortable. This is when he claimed in the video that you all saw in video footage that he could identify as a woman with a beard.
I could identify as a lady with a beard. There's nothing you can do about that. Have a very good day.
Let's go.
Enjoy yourself with your crap and your taping.
Don't let them get you upset, Nate.
Oh, I'm not upset. I could identify
This guy
as a
was in
lady.
a woman's change room.
Hey, don't I am pregnant. Stop! You're hurting your kid. Get over.
Now, that video was put up to Facebook by a woman named Sage Point, who says she's the aunt of a 10-year-old girl who was assaulted, I should say allegedly assaulted in that situation. The RCMP has put out a statement and responded to Rebel News saying the matter is still under investigation. They've reached out to all parties, but the mother is speaking out through a woman we've just interviewed, and that's what I want to show you. Her name is Serena Winterburn. She helped organize a protest that's here today. We're going to have that come up in a completely separate report for you, but we really want this mother's voice to be heard because the mainstream media has gone out and told one side of the story. Shocker. Let me show you a little bit of this article or this report from Czech News.
The whole thing was a misunderstanding. It really sucked.
But the woman, whose partner is the man in the video, says he's not a transgender person. Their family of 7 was just trying to find the family change room. Instead, when they couldn't, the mom and her friend went into the women's.
He hadn't come in yet. He was still outside, and I had his swim shorts, and I also needed his help because he's the dad of the family.
Now, I reached out to that dad, who goes by Natus Butler, to get more clarity on their family's side of the story. Like, since when does being a dad give you a green light to enter a woman's change room? And how does threatening to be a trans woman when you're not to do so make you different than anybody who, I don't know, might be a pervert and wish to do the same? I did not hear back from Natus Butler, but for now, let's hear what the mother had to say through Serena Winterburn.
This is Serena Winterburn. Now, you had powerful words to say, and you were also given the blessing to speak on behalf of the mother in this story in some ways.
We need to be able to stand for the rights of our girls and us women because we have fought through history for these rights.
Why was it important, first of all, to address the crowd today?
It was important today because we needed to clarify some of the issues because the narrative has been misconstrued not only in mainstream media but online and in our community. So it was important to get the narrative out there.
First and foremost, I want to send out some prayers and some love to the family for what they went through. I had the opportunity to speak with the mother this morning and to hear her testimony of what took place to her and her daughter.
The RCMP has encouraged restorative justice. However, the family's not sure if that's the avenue they're going to go, so they are being advised by their legal team at this time not to do any statements. Now, there were some things that I can clarify about what took place for the family. First off, the 2 girls that were in the change room in question were both 10 years old. The mother and the cousin were waiting in the lobby because the girls were both in a women's change room, not a universal change room, a women's washroom, and so they felt their children were safe. However, they saw multiple families come out. It was their observation that they seemed flustered. They watched one family go to the desk and put in a complaint. Then their daughters came out, and when the daughters came out, they had shared with their family that they felt extremely uncomfortable. They chose not to continue changing and getting ready because they were in full view of a man and they didn't feel comfortable undressing in front of him. The family then came out, so it was 2 women and a man with multiple children, and the mother then went to go confront them respectfully and say, why is there a man in the change room? This made my children uncomfortable. The first thing they said was that they weren't aware where the universal change room was. He had followed them in there because they were in there, and that they didn't know where the universal washroom was. And so what happened was they said,
which I might add is right there.
Next
It's
door
right
to it.
beside it.
Yes, absolutely. And so the mother felt it was her speculation that this was actually just an excuse. The family seemed flustered and seemed to be having their own argument or conflict. And so they were saying, we're having a tough day, just leave us alone, just let it go. And she said, no, this is important, something serious. Like she was trying to advocate for her children, in which the man then came out, and that is when they began filming because the women were now swearing at them. They tried to make it a racial issue because the women were both First Nations and the children, saying that it was actually them being racial towards the non-First Nations family. Then they changed and they said, actually, this is a gender issue. You're against transgender people. And the mother very clearly said, no, that's actually not our values. We believe in gender fluidity. That's not an issue. This is about safety for our children. Our children were uncomfortable. This is when the man then began identifying, saying that, well, I could identify as a woman with a beard and there is nothing you can do about it. That is also then when the mother was taping because she was uncomfortable because the women had previously swore at her and seemed aggressive. That's when she was then attacked. Now, I need to respect the privacy of the details because it is an investigation, but I do want to say that in an attempt for the child to put her arm out and to protect her mother when she was being attacked by all 3 of them, the child did endure some injuries that she is still healing from right now. And it was that situation which then pushed this confrontation over the edge.
I'm just going to add one thing. Let's show the end of that clip. You hear a woman say, "You're hurting my child." Take a listen.
You're hurting our kid. Get off!
Now, this all sounds horrific. It's important to know a lot of what's said is allegations. It's under investigation. But the whole issue of same-sex spaces, that's nothing new. And what were your thoughts when you heard this man who, according to Czech News and according to his partner, doesn't identify as a transgender woman? What were your thoughts for him saying, I can be a bearded woman and do whatever I want?
I could identify as a lady with a beard. There's nothing you can do about that.
I felt that this set us back. As women, we have been fighting for hundreds, if not thousands of years, not only to be women, not only to have our voices, not only to be able to advocate for our own bodily autonomy, but for our safety, our security, our privacy, and our dignity. And so that was an assault on all of those things. And so for me, that's why it was so important to give voice here, not just to these children, not just to these women, but to all women. Because when we have men coming into our spaces and utilizing this as a loophole to perpetrate and feel entitled that they can come into women's spaces and erode our sense of safety, our sense of dignity, our sense of protection and privacy, we have an issue that is setting us back hundreds of years.
And what did you make of the take that this is all some sort of big misunderstanding, and that now it almost suggested in that article or that report that this protest in itself is against the trans community? What do you make of that piece that came out?
Well, I noticed that when this happened previously with Janaea Wright, who is a mother in Nanaimo, who went through this previously in the year in the swimming pool with a man in the women's changing room peeking under and her taking him out. What we saw from the community and from the media and even doxing her, she's had to shut down certain social medias. She a huge reprimand from the community because the narrative is taken and it becomes one of hate. And hate shuts down the conversation when we censor it as hate and stamp it with hate.
So when I saw the story that happened in Couch, and it really triggered me because of what happened to my own daughter at the Nanaimo Aquatic Center, this is not something that we should have to be dealing with as mothers. We shouldn't have to be attacked after we are advocating for our children and for their safety. We shouldn't have to not allow our children to go into the women's only change room without being accompanied by an adult at the age of 10 years old. They should be able to go in there, have their little piece of independence, get changed, and then I can meet them out at the pool area. After seeing that this is happening now not once just to my daughter in Nanaimo last year, but this is now happening again on Vancouver Island within our community in the Cowichan Valley. It's just really gut-wrenching to me. And it just really honestly triggered me that another mother has to go through something like this. It's something that no child and no parent should have to deal with.
And so what's going on, again, we saw that here today, and the very first thing I clarified on the mother's behalf was this was not a trans issue, because she is an extremely inclusive person, as am I. This is not a trans issue. This is a girls' and women's safe space issue, and there is a difference.
The mother said to me, and I quote, "We believe in gender fluidity. This is not what it was about." There were accusations of this being a racial issue by this family who is First Nations and Cowichan. And that is not the truth as to what happened. The second accusation was that this was a trans issue. And that is not the truth. That does not represent the family's values. And the mother clarified this was a safety concern.
Thank you very much for your time. Serena Winterburn, Drea Humphrey with Rebel News. Unlike 95% of media in Canada, Rebel News doesn't take a penny from the federal government, the same government that brought forth Bill C-16, the law that makes it legal for any Tom, Dick, and Harry to identify as a bearded woman and go into the women's change room and see children changing, showering along with their mothers. Now, if you appreciate the work that we do, you should know that I had to take a ferry here, and I also have a bodyguard here with me today to keep me safe, because for whatever reason, many times when we've reported on activists standing for safe spaces for women and children, there are often violent counter-protesters. Now today that wasn't the case, but we do need your help paying those security bills. And to do so, if you appreciate our reports, please go to journalistdefensefund.com and chip in what you can. We appreciate your support.